Right. We are recording this as we do all our online events. It, is that Alan Myers who keeps talking? If you wouldn't mind just muting Alan, thanks very much. Um, we're welcoming Nick Gaywood tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And the usual protocol is that please feel free to fire your questions in on the chat. And at the end, we can make quite sure that those are either picked up during the conversation that we have with Nick or alternatively um, uh, at the end of the discussion. And we'll also make sure that if you want to just ask him a question rather than put it on the chat, you'll be more than welcome to do that. So what I'll do, if I may, is introduce Nick. Ronald Patterson, who's a long-standing member of the Cricket Society, he's also the chair of the Cricket Society. He introduced me to Nick last summer at the Cricket Society Trust event at Kimbolton School, and he said Nick is a cricketing polymath. So I had to guess what a polymath was, but it's someone apparently who is has an amazing ability to take on responsibility, get things done without showing any sign of stress or concern, and then is happy to do even more. So I think you'll find at the end of the discussion tonight that Nick will approve that. But I'm just going to give him a little bit of a background first before we crack on with some really interesting things to discuss. Nick played 123 games for Devon in the Minor Counties Championship between 1981 and 1999. He also played some List A games in the Nat West for Devon, and he also played a List A game in the Benson Hedges Cup for the combined minor counties. He's still a fine cricketer. He's a member of the England over 60s team at the moment, which we all think we can still play cricket at certain ages, but Nick plays it to a very high standard. He's a member of Sheffield Collegiate Cricket Club, and he still plays regularly on a Saturday for them, and that's a very impressive, high quality club, and it's where Joe Root and family learnt their cricket, and Michael Vaughan, I think. So what else does Nick do? Well, he works on behalf of the Barmy Army, and we've all heard of that. It's been running now for 30 years, so it'd be intriguing to hear what he has to say about that. And I guess his main day job is working on the Root Academy, Joe Root's Academy, the Root Foundation, it's sometimes known as. And most recently, he's become a trustee of the Cricket Society Trust. So, what else has he done? Well, just in case you didn't think there was enough time, he's been coaching physical education, cricket, and other sports in the private and public sectors all his working life. So, Nick, welcome to our chat. Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully, that covered most of the bases that you've uh, touched over the last few years. I think why don't we start with the Root Foundation and the Root family? They've set up this foundation. Joe Root is still one of England's greatest batsmen, and he still looks as though he's going to go on forever and a day. But tell us a little bit about the foundation and the academy and what it seeks to do.
Hi, good evening, everybody. The Root Academy was actually set up as a commercial concern about 8 years ago. And it was Father Matt, Grandfather Don, Joe, and Billy, and it's really a sort of legacy project for the family. They've got no intention. They don't want to take any money out of it. It was just there to sort of support cricket, and it's been evolving. It's changed. They're still trying to find the sort of niche and where it will fit into the cricket market, but it's a commercial concern. It's trying to make money. And so the sort of things it does, we have online coaching diplomas, we have training equipment, coaching equipment, we do teamwear, we do tours, we have a high performance center in Adelaide in Australia, and we run coaching camps. So there's a whole range of things. But the Root Foundation that you're speaking about, we've applied, and we're very, very close to getting it over the line to be a charity. And that with the charitable arm of the Root Academy will be the Root Foundation. At the moment, it's just registered as a social enterprise. But for those of you involved with charities, the charities are a much more effective way of getting funding than social enterprises. And this will open lots of doors for us. We already work with the Cricket Society Trust, and our main aims are really grassroots cricket. So the state school project that we're involved with the Cricket Society Trust is perfect. And there's a whole we do these under 15 and under 13 cricket leagues that Jeff Hastings, a Cricket Society member, has set up and driven initially with Fred Truman. He's done an outstanding job there. I've started something in Yorkshire called Route to Hardball, which is for year 7 kids, which is a 10 pairs and is a bridging competition between the primary school quick cricket and hardball cricket in schools. And I'm just absolutely passionate that I think you've got to have a profile of cricket in our state secondary schools. If a lot of you will have watched the Freddie Flintoff stuff, and what's patently obvious is that there are many in those schools and adults that really don't know anything about cricket, and I find that so hard to believe, being steeped in cricket. But people don't know about cricket. They just really don't understand it or don't. And presence in state schools will keep its profile high and will ultimately help the ECB by getting people through the door to watch matches live or to go and watch it on television or online or however people now watch cricket. So really the Root Foundation linked with the Cricket Society Trust is going to have a real impact. So
Yeah, no, thank you. And what about the involvement of the family in the day-to-day organisation of the Root Academy Stroke Foundation? Because I guess both Billy and Joe are obviously full-time cricketers, and father and grandfather. Do they do the heavy lifting?
Dad's been the man that's done the heavy lifting. The situation is as you've described for Billy and Joe. They chip in, they get updated regularly, they come and help us with filming and all sorts of things that we need them for whenever they can. Billy's just been up doing a load of filming with us. He's come up from Wales. Joe, whenever we have him back, does stuff which he's very, very good at. So it's Dad's sort of initiative. And now this sort of links to the Barmy Army. Dad was the managing director of the Root Academy, and he knows Chris Millard, who's the managing director of the Barmy Army, because Joe and Chris Millard have sort of been friends from school times. And they got talking and they decided that these two were quite good bedfellows, and they both now fit under the umbrella of a company called the Emprise Group. So the Emprise Group has the Barmy Army and now has another cricket travel group called the International Cricket Tours. It has Emprise Digital, it has Emprise Team Academy, and then we have the Root Foundation now that's going to sit underneath it. So it's all a sort of little cricket empire growing, which has been quite exciting to be part of, to be honest.
Yes, I bet. And I think, I mean, I presume that both Joe Root and his brother Billy will be looking for, their careers will run down probably over the next 5 or 7 years, maybe, and they will then be looking to make take advantage of the momentum they've had. Joe Root is a national hero. It must be very difficult for Billy Root. He's a very competent cricketer, but I'm sure that living in his brother's shadow, but I'm sure that he will. They both seem very well balanced, intelligent, interesting people, and they will want to contribute to something like this over the long term, I would have thought.
Yes, it'll be. Joe may get taken off in other directions. I don't know whether he'll do media, whether he'll do coaching. He's very interested in coaching and the coaching process, but I don't know where he'll go. Possibly a bit of both. Billy, obviously less high profile, but he is, let's not forget, the best left-handed batsman in the family, so he's got that to be proud of. And Bill may well gravitate into the business, but there's lots of opportunities there because of the link with the Barmy Army and these other areas. So
Yeah. And what about they obviously both had the opportunity to play cricket when they were growing up, and I think Joe Root got a scholarship eventually to Worksop College, didn't he? But how did they talk about their sort of growth into the game? Father, I think, was keen. Was their grandfather keen as well?
Yeah, grandfather Don played for, I think, Rotherham Town in the Yorkshire League. He wasn't. I don't think he was a great cricketer, but he'll tell you otherwise when you meet him at the dinner next week. But Matt was a very good cricketer. He's got some quite interesting records because he managed to play at Lords and Twickenham in the same summer. He got to the English Rugby Union Vars final with Sheffield Tigers and scored the winning try in the last minute. And then he got to Lords with Sheffield Collegiate in the National Club Championship. So he's a prestigiously good sportsman. What we didn't realise is he joined Sheffield Collegiate and we batted together. And then one night we were at his house having a meal and some wine, and he got a Wisden out and showed me when he played for Notts Twos. And I said I had some games for Notts Twos, and we looked in the book, and we actually both played in the same season for Notts Twos, but without ever meeting each other. So he was of that level of cricketer, and the kids just loved cricket. They didn't have to be, they weren't pushed into it. They, from the tiny age, they were running around the cricket club playing. I suppose dad and granddad would have given them basic technical input, and then they sort of got on with it. And then they played with their mates. And I have vivid memories of fielding in the Yorkshire League and seeing a little corner of it's quite a big ground, and you could see these games of wind ball cricket going on in the corner that were actually more interesting than our game. And you could see them, if all of the lads playing were playing a bloody good game of cricket, and it was unstructured, uncoached, and they were running quick singles, playing a whole wide range of shots. And it's like, well, who needs coaches? These guys can sort of learn themselves. And they came on from there. They're state school boys. They had a primary school teacher who was very keen on cricket that played at our club. So they had lots and lots of opportunities to play softball cricket. The club was starting its Michael Vaughan Cricket Academy, so there was more opportunities at the club. And then they had a little bit of cricket at the state school they went to, the secondary school, but not a lot. But Joe got spotted very early and got a scholarship at Yorkshire at 12. So he was up having one-to-one coaching with Kevin Sharp, who, if you ever get a chance to talk to on this format, is a very lovely guy and a really nice guy to listen to. He's also a cricket polymath, I suspect. But Kevin did one-to-ones with Joe, and it's whenever people see these young, he looked good, but I'm a PE teacher and I've seen lots of kids that look good, and lots of people at the club say, yes, I could see he was going to play for England from when he was 10. And I'm sort of somewhat skeptical about that view, because I've seen many people fall by the wayside who look good. But Kevin, I asked Kevin the same question. He said, well, he had him up at, I think he was 12 or 13, and he had him up to Headingley for one of these one-to-ones that were paid for by the cricket club. And he had him watching, I think it was Anthony McGrath in the nets. Kevin was bouncing him off a table to help him practice the short ball. He was peppering him with fast short pitch bowling, and he finished the session. He said, well, it's your turn, Joe. And he talked to him a bit, said, what would you like to do? And he said, well, I'm not very big and I need to be able to play the short ball well. So can you do that session you've just done there? And Kevin Sharp looked at him and thought, God, he's about 4'6", half a stone wet through. Should I really do this? And he ummed and ahed, and then Kevin did it. And he hit him a bit. Joe hit some. He hit it, and he talked to him when he came out, and then Kevin thought he's got something special because he coped with it. He analysed what had happened. He wasn't scared. He was aware of what he needed to work on, and those were some of the qualities which clearly have helped him through this illustrious career.
Yes, and you've talked a little bit there about the importance of a cricket club like Sheffield Collegiate. Obviously, clubs need to thrive because often children don't have the chance to play at school, as you've highlighted. So, what's your sense in Yorkshire at the moment about the strength of club cricket? Is it still as strong as ever, still growing? Do people come to the clubs now because their parents feel that they can learn cricket there?
It's an interesting question. I get the feeling Yorkshire's doing quite well in terms of numbers of juniors. So I think there are the clubs that have bothered to invest in coaching and perhaps reached out to local primary schools and host events. I think they're doing really, really well. At the higher up the levels, Yorkshire don't seem to be quite so strong at sort of academy and junior level. That seems to be a bit of an issue. They were always so strong. But I would say my gut feeling is that there's a lot of very good, or the volume of cricket is high. Uh, and Yorkshire's doing pretty well. That you can see the clubs that have struggled, they're the ones that just haven't bothered with juniors. If they don't invest in it, and we're finding the same with women and girls now. If your club has invested its time and energy in women and girls, you've got, to be fair, a much more rounded club, a much more family orientated club. The only problem you've got, of course, is that you haven't got enough facilities. So all of a sudden you do well and you reach a limit, and you need other people in other clubs to take people, and you need to find venues. So that's the big problem. I have a solution for that, but I feel that our state secondary schools are an obvious place where you could create. The ECB should be looking to work with the charities such as ourselves to see, well, can we create a network of state cricket state secondary schools where you base some ECB qualified coaches, where you develop the match facilities, the training facilities, indoor and outdoor, and you have them as hubs. And you've also therefore just created another ground for local clubs to use on Saturdays, Sundays, evenings, to accommodate with the growth in women's and girls and junior cricket that's occurring. So I'm very keen, as our foundation develops, to see what I can do with that respect. In that respect, but it's an interesting project. We've seen there's a very good example in Brighton, the Aldridge Cricket Academy in Brighton, which has had a massively big leg up from Sir Rod Aldridge, the guy from Capita. And there's also another very good one at Canterbury that a guy called Phil Rolfe, who's exceptional bloke, has created a really good cricket setup where their state school cricket is competing with the private schools. There's a guy called Gary Sapsford's done something over at Brentwood in a state school, and it shows me that it can be done. And not all schools have sold their playing fields. There's plenty of space in a lot of the schools in Sheffield that I know. So it's not impossible.
Yeah, but you kind of need a catalyst in the teaching staff, I suppose, don't you? Who's got the time and the energy and the interest, and that's going to be quite a random selection, I would imagine.
If the ECB were to direct and redirect some of their coaching teams into these schools, then you wouldn't necessarily need that, because they could deal with all sorts of things, including upskilling teachers. And there's a real problem, and I know this from my time in state secondary. I've taught in state primaries, state secondaries, independent schools. The sort of people coming through in the world of PE now aren't like we were. People of our age would have been cricket, rugby, hockey, football. Yep, you would have been strong in at least one of those games, and you would have had a passion to do it. The PE teachers of the last 25 years, you've had a dip in state school competitive sport combined with a different sort of PE training where many of them aren't cricketers, and they might not have ever played team game. They might be a climber, a cyclist, somebody who's really into fitness, a marathon runner, a triathlete. You've got a different sort of sporty person who's come into the world of PE. So there are big gaps in our state schools in terms of staffing, even within PE. So
the solution to this in broad terms is if you're a club, you've got to develop a youth system, and you can do that in conjunction with the ECB, and then the ECB have then got to get out into the school system and try and influence that more.
Yeah, the All Stars and the other ECB things are very good. They're wonderful little packages. They're cheap, but they still are middle class orientated. If we want to get our working class, for example, I don't think soccer is a working class game. I don't think it's working class kids that make it in these academies. It's kids who've got parents who can take them hundreds of miles 3 or 4 times a week to train. That's not a working class. They're not picked off the streets. We're missing loads of talent at the sort of bottom end of society because schools don't do competitive sport where everybody would have an opportunity and where all the equipment, etc., would be provided. And I think that's what we're missing at the bottom.
Yes, it's not an easy answer. I just
No.
at the Cricket Society Trust day at Kimbolton School last year, where I met you. It was very interesting talking to the two teams in the over 15s final. One team came from Scunthorpe and one from Kettering, and they obviously had very engaged teachers. That
Yep.
was clear. But I also the team from Scunthorpe, every one of those children in the under 15 was playing for their local club, which was very well connected to the school. So that seemed the ideal solution, that they were getting
Absolutely.
to play adult cricket on the weekend and having a chance to play it at school during the week. But of course, that puts them in the minority these days.
Yeah, I think there's a real cultural thing about playing for a club. I think there's a whole generation of parents and children that don't understand. We understand what it's like to play for a club, and you've got to be available every week, and you've got to help with the ground. You understand the commitment. These people haven't played team sport, a lot of them, and they don't know that you can't just turn up once and then disappear and or play when you want to or train when you want to. Or it's something I found one of my comprehensive schools. We got Saturday morning sport going for girls and boys. We had rugby, football, hockey, netball, and I started off, and the kids. I was there on a Saturday morning, ready on the coach to take them to a school to play a fixture, and I'd have 7 or 8 people missing. And I would talk to the kids, and they say, "Oh, Johnny's decided he's going to go shopping with mum and dad," and things like this. And I suddenly realised it wasn't embedded in people like it was in me. So we then had to sort of retrain them. So we actually went round in the bus and picked kids up, which was quite alarming to have parents see me knocking on their door at 9:30 on a Saturday morning. But the head will also back me to the hilt, and he would line kids up outside his office who'd let the school down, who didn't turn up. And he would say, "What have you done? This is you're committed to this. You've been to the training session. You've been picked. You don't let people down." And I just massively believe in the power of team sport in terms of we talk about. I get quite passionate about this, but you talk about communities within society, and sports clubs are a brilliant example. And commitment is part of that. And if you're going to be committed to sport, you're probably going to be committed in work and in other areas of life. And I can just only see it, completely biased though I am, as a massive positive that kids should play team sports and understand what it means not to let other people down.
Yes, well, let's we could carry that conversation on a long way. So thank you very much. That's very interesting about the future and what it entails. And I guess there's a lot of charities like Chance to Shine and the MCC Foundation that are working very hard to try and improve the situation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I really like the look of the MCC hubs, of which there are well over 100 now. It's free coaching to state school kids, trying to give them that extra coaching that you'll get if you go to a private school. I think that's fantastic. I'm a little bit worried about Chance to Shine in the primary schools. I think the figures are very good, but I'm not sure that the figures are. I think they're economical with the truth about the impact. Because, for example, if you're a cricket board and you send a coach into a primary school for a one-off day, they might go to 5 classes. They'll get 45 minutes with each class, and that's it. And that counts as an impact on the figures. And that isn't really an impact. If you look at the number of schools who get the 6-week block, where they go to one class for 6 weeks or 2 classes and do an afternoon there, if a coach goes in and does 6 weeks, that's much more likely to have an impact. And those figures are a bit disappointing depending on which county you're in and how many coaches people have got to that they can send into schools. We've struggled at Sheffield Collegiate. We've had a good period about 7 or 8 years ago where I had 3 or 4 students and another somebody else who was able to go into the local primary schools. And now, in the last 5 years, we've actually not had that set of circumstances, and we've noticed a difference. We haven't got as many. Our figures are still good, but we haven't had as high a take up because of that. So.
Good. Well, no, fascinating stuff, Nick. Thank you. Now, we're now going to go back to your playing career, and I'm going to start off with a very good question by Nicholas Evanson, who's put this on the chat. because you, as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, you played a lot for Devon, and you've played high level club cricket all these years. You're now in the England over 60s. But Nicholas said, were you ever offered the opportunity, like fellow Devon run machine Nick Folland, to take the summer term off teaching to try your luck in the game? If not, but had it been offered, would you have taken it? Equally, if it was, what was the reason for declining the chance? So, why don't you talk a little bit about how you developed your cricketing activities with Devon and answer those questions en route?
I was mad about cricket. My dad was mad about cricket. Cricket's in my blood, like everybody that signed up here. There's something romantic and that just draws you in cricket. I can't get it out of my blood. So as a young kid, I watched it whenever I could. I played it whenever I could, and I was desperate to play the Bovey Tracy, my sort of village side first team. That was my aspiration. Then I got a bit more ambitious and wanted to try and play for Devon. But if you were brought up in a minor county, nowhere near pro cricket, we didn't see professional cricketers in our leagues. My aspirations, I think, were quite limited. If I'd grown up in Yorkshire, where you had overseas and pro cricketers all the time, I would have probably been thinking a little bit higher. But I wasn't very confident. I'd managed to get in the Devon side, but they were blooding youngsters at the time to try and rebuild the side. And it took a while to settle, but eventually found my sort of niche and had a amazing time for Devon, winning all sorts of things and playing really well. But I had one little spell where I was at Loughborough University, and I got quite wrapped up in technique and trying to look the part, and I wanted to be a pro. And I'd managed to get a gold award against Notts for Devon in the NatWest Trophy, and they invited me to winter training. So I went a couple of winters. I played a few games in both of those summers. I think I got 150. That took about 4.5 hours. That was riveting. And I would have loved to have been a pro, but I don't think I was. You've got to have, I don't know, you've either got to be absolutely outstanding, or you've really got to have a lot of sort of toughness. And when I look back, I was waiting for people to go, "Oh, you're wonderful, come and play for us, here's a contract." And I should have been, and I was just waiting for Notts to offer me something, and I should have been looking at all the other counties, right? If you ever chatted to Andy Moles, he's a really interesting guy, because he was adamant he was going to be a pro, and he wrote to all 17 counties, made himself unemployed every summer, and just went whenever he had a chance to play. He went and played for a county second team. Finally got runs, and it was for his home county, Warwickshire, and they couldn't drop him. And then he got runs the next week, and he got runs the next week. And that I don't think I had that level of determination. I had some desire, but I wasn't backing it up with determination. So Nick was a little bit different. He played at Gloucester as a kid. He played England schools, and he was clearly miles ahead of the rest of us. And then Somerset approached him when he was already established as a teacher. So they sort of almost, they didn't force him, but they came with a good offer, and he had 2 years there. But he didn't enjoy the pro game. He stopped, not because he couldn't play. I think he averaged mid-30s. He did perfectly all right. I think he probably was being lined up to be captain, to be honest. But he just didn't enjoy the pro game. He was much happier in Devon, where we sort of played as a team, and there was quite a good bonding in the amongst the players. So he was much happier there.
And minor counties cricket, if you look at Devon, there you are. You gave a perfect example of how it acted as a filter to Somerset with Nick Folland, and more recently, I can randomly think of the Overton brothers, and there's no doubt plenty of others as well. That how important is
not that many. It's quite a good quiz question. If you want me,
yes.
If anybody, I think I've got 8 that are Devon cricketers that have played for England. I'm not. There might have been some in the deep dust. I've got one from 1963 onwards. There's 8.
Very good.
But somebody can, maybe at the end, people can think about that.
So what about the strength of minor counties cricket now, and its importance to channeling people into the professional game?
Well, it's changed, hasn't it? So it's changed its name, it's changed its format, and it's sort of changed its purpose. So now, when I played, it was the Minor Counties Cricket Association. Um, we played one NatWest Trophy game a year if we got high enough in our division. And you had anybody of any age. You basically tried to pick your best team available to play, and there were a lot of experienced cricketers, ex-first class cricketers came down. Graham Roop used to play in it. Alvin Kalitcharan, Kevin Sharp played in it. There were cricketers coming down to the minor counties cricket, but we played 4 innings in 2 days, usually on very, very flat wickets, where the club you played at had gone well out of their way to make it the best wicket they ever produced. And quite often the results were contrived. We had to do declaration bowling or something to create time to get a finish. And although I loved it to bits and I didn't really recognise it at the time, when I look back, I'm not sure it was the best form of cricket. The format now, they have a 3-day game, they have a 50 over comp, and they have a T20, but it's called the National Counties Cricket Association, as I'm sure everyone's aware, and they have age sort of limits. It's a very young sort of under 21 orientated and all about producing local people. And I think they've matched. I'm a bit distant from it, but I think they've matched the counties up with a parent county.
Yeah.
So you'll have kids playing in the minor counties, but then also going off to play for Sussex Seconds or something. So I think Berkshire is Oxfordshire linked to Middlesex, Berkshire. There's a sort of system like that. So I'm not sure of its relative strength. There's a lot of, I've heard there's a lot of, maybe because there's so many young cricketers, it's not quite as good. But I think the format looks better. And it seems to be producing cricketers into the county system through the links.
Which remains a very important thing, doesn't it? The pyramid is crucial, really, isn't it? And the English Cricket Board presumably take that into account and think, well, actually, we better not reduce the roster of counties, because we'll just reduce the roster of career opportunities, and people from Devon won't want to come and play if they've got to go and play in Nottinghamshire or somewhere like that to get a game. It's do you still see the minor counties world as being very, very crucial in that cricket development, or do you now see it as something where people probably would say, I'm happy playing at that level, really enjoy it for a few years, and then I'll go back and play club cricket?
Now that's a really interesting debate, because you've got academies where, in football, cricket, rugby, and everything, where their kids are pulled together very young, and if you're not careful, they're in Yorkshire under 11s and they stay in Yorkshire under 16s, under 7. They go all the way through, and historically there hasn't been much movement. So the kids that get in these academies, and that would be the same at Somerset, at Gloucestershire, etc., they're almost. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They get the most opportunities, the most coaching. So why wouldn't they stay? It's very hard for people to. It doesn't look like it's very fluid. So I'm not sure of the role of academies. I would perhaps rather see a higher standard and lots more people playing, and us sort of choosing people a bit later when they're a bit older. I don't think you can see the man in the boy necessarily. I think we need to. You waste a lot of time and money. Look at football academies. 99 point whatever % of people fail, and you think, well, what's the point of that investment then? Isn't it better that we have something a lot broader, and then find those that really, really want it and have really got the aptitude at a bit older? But I understand they're trying to tie people in so cricketers don't go to football and top footballers don't go to rugby. I understand it's a complete fight for the talent pool, but my argument is, let's make the talent pool bigger.
Yeah. I mean, I think in football they recognise they need the 99 players across the age groups for the one person that they're going to sell for £100 million, aren't they? I suppose. Whereas in cricket, it's a different proposition.
Yes, they're not going to make that much money unless they're at the very, very top. But it's still interesting how counties select, and whether you should broaden the base and have. I know Sussex, Richard Halsall, who's currently with the England under-19s, was trying to broaden the base at Sussex. So he didn't want one under-13, under-14, under-15 side. He wanted 4 groups, and he wanted to keep them like that and not play Sussex County teams until they were much older, when he'd had chance, if you like, everybody'd had a longer chance to mature. And then you had a real good look at them, and then you filtered out, and you were more likely to be hitting the right sort of people. But early specialisation is also an issue for me, because I think kids should do rugby, hockey, football, swimming, cricket. I think it's a much healthier thing for people as people to do that, rather than to be one sport be rammed down your throat from the age of 12. That I'm not sure is healthy or moral, no. Even. But
yeah, thank you. No, that's very interesting. Now we'll move on to England over 60s, because the growth in over 40s, over 50s, over 60s, over 70s, possibly even over 80s. Does that exist? In terms of cricket is quite amazing. So tell us a little bit about how you've evolved into that, and also you've been on Mark on the chat has said, you know, you went on the recent tour, I think, to India, didn't you? And you said, how was it, and were there any highlights? I think he's probably asking you if you scored any runs, Nick.
Well, the opportunities have been ridiculous. You unfortunately, you have to be able to afford to play for your country. That's a little bit controversial. So if you are still working, you haven't cleared your mortgages, you've got family at university, whatever it is, and you can't afford to go on the tours, then there's no funding whatsoever for any of the England stuff. All of it is self-funded. So I've been lucky enough that I basically spent the children's inheritance going to India twice, Australia for Ashes, and a World Cup in India. But it costs even the homes. There were, what did I play? 17 internationals at home last year, and every time there's a travel cost, there's a hotel cost. It isn't cheap, so you've got to be able to afford to do it, which I'm not sure is quite right, but I understand why you would prioritize younger people rather than older people. But it wouldn't cost the ECB a lot to just put some funding in for the internationals to subsidise it a bit. The ECB don't recognise, they know it's there, but they don't want anything to do with it. They've reduced the amount of funding they've put into the over 50s, for example. They used to fund the final and match balls, and they've cut that right out now. And I find it a bit harsh. The people that play 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s are all people who are chairmen, they're committee members, they're coaches, they're secretaries, they're players. They've given loads to cricket over the years, and it just seems a bit harsh that. Not harsh. I just think it's illogical. The ECB talk about being inclusive, yet they don't include. They're ageist. If I was disabled, or I was from Afro-Caribbean background or a South Asian background, or I was blind or something, I would now be getting some support. But I'm not, just because I'm older. And I'm not sure, I don't see how that makes an inclusive cricket pathway. It's a cradle to a grave thing. Walking cricket, the next extension here, brilliant. That gets some funding. But, that we're all on that same pathway. And I think they're very wrong. They're much maligned, but I do think they do a lot of good things. But I think they're wrong in this instance, and it wouldn't cost them a lot. Perhaps say if they didn't take 14 coaches to an Ashes series and just kept a couple of them at home and didn't pay them, that money could go into the seniors cricket and would just be a massive help to subsidise some of the people that are struggling. But it's a brilliant thing. It's sociable. It's fitness, or it's bloody competitive. It's still, what you find is that none of us have lost the competitive urge. We can't do what we could do before, but I don't feel, I'm nervous as hell going out to bat. I don't want to make mistakes. I want to score runs. I'm worried I'm going to get dropped. There's nothing actually has changed in the way that I'm trying to play my cricket. So it's an absolutely wonderful thing, and it's spread all over the country. Under the over 50s county things, every county I think's got a team. Over 60s now, all bar maybe one county have got a team, and they've merged with somebody else. There are second 11 competitions, third 11, fourth 11 at over 60. Over 70s have got nearly got a full complement of counties playing over 70s, and there's a second team league in some counties. Kent, Sussex, Essex, particularly strong in those areas. They've got lots and lots of teams. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I didn't even know it existed. I went to I was taught till I was 54, and I just felt I wanted a change. And I was very, very lucky because I was whinging about teaching. I'd had enough, and I was talking to Matt Root at the cricket club. And Matt is a businessman who's made money totally independent of Joe. His businesses have worked really well, and he was keen to do something in cricket. And he'd found this place in Desert Springs, which the bloke who used to run the Barmy Army actually showed him. It's a small world. And this resort is a gorgeous place in Spain called Desert Springs. It's a championship golf course with housing and apartments all around it in a very dry, sunny part of Spain. And he said, I'm working with the resort to build a grass cricket pitch. I said, what? He said, I'll take you out and we'll come and have a look. He said, there's also 24 grass nets there. So they were already in situ. And I went out and they showed me a bit of desert in front of some of the apartments, and within 10 months it was a cricket ground. And for 4 years my job was to sell cricket training camps and cricket holidays to people. So that was a really interesting part of my life. It wasn't helped by COVID, sort of increasing air flight prices and things like that, but we were building nicely, and it still works today. I think there's Derby Academy are over there with Marlborough College at the moment doing a pre-season. So there's lots of good cricket. It's a great facility in a wonderful place. But while I was there, I was trying to get. I suddenly realised, I discovered there were these county senior teams. So I was getting some of them out to come for pre-seasons or tournaments and things like that. And that's when I realised, and my boss said to me, well, you might as well play some of this cricket. He said, I've no objection because you're bumping into county cricketers who might want to come to Desert Springs. So he very kindly let me play for Yorkshire on Wednesday afternoons. And that's how it all started in the 50s.
Yeah, very good. And so to answer Mark's question, what were your highlights of your India tour
Well,
on a personal level?
On a personal level, it was what they called a Lions tour. So we were invited by Cricket India, that they realised they'd been rubbish at over 60s cricket. They had a lot of good old cricketers who hadn't played for ages who thought they could turn up and just play, and they were rubbish in the World Cup. And India are now getting their act together, so they have a trial where there are 4 regions of India in this tournament. It was a venue in a place called Pondicherry, which is the French quarter of India, which I didn't know there was such a thing. 8 grounds at this venue: indoor cricket school, outdoor grass nets, quite extraordinary, including a first-class standard ground with floodlights where there was a Ranji Trophy game going on while we were there. And we played the 4 regions, and they also brought a team back from England of expat Indians who were still qualified to play. And we were a mixture of sort of established England 60s players, people fighting for their places we've got a World Cup in Canada in August, and people who were 59, so the youngsters who were trying to prove that they should be in the trip to Canada. So it was a lovely team. And I did all right. I got a 40 odd, and then I got 100 in the first 2 games, and then we were sharing it around. So I only batted one more time, but it's a wonderful thing. If you're lucky enough to have gone to India, it's a crazy place. Very nice when you go back to a 5-star hotel in the evenings and escape the sort of madness. But it's a wonderful place,
particularly after you've got a ton. What about the wickets? What were they like at the centre?
Well, they were very, very good. Hardly a ball turned. We were all expecting spinning wickets. Hardly a ball turned. They were very, very good. We played at a warm-up game at the Chennai Super Kings training ground, and that had 4 different types of soil. And I'm not sure which one we played on, but they had conditions to suit England, Australia, whatever. But they were flat. And when we went to the World Cup, we were expecting in Chennai, we thought we'd get turning wickets, and they were roads. It just skidded on, and we couldn't work it out. But what had happened is it had a typhoon about 7 weeks before, and it flooded all the cricket grounds. And there was obviously a lot of probably quite nasty stuff gone onto the square, and there was a lot of grass. The grass had grown. They hadn't had any cricket. The grass had grown, and it was like playing on a wicket at the start of the season. So they didn't turn. That was why they didn't turn. So I've been to India twice and haven't played on a turning wicket.
Very good. Well, who cares if you're getting hundreds? You say, long may it continue. No, thank you. And I think just for people listening, if they are still playing actively at cricket and they are of a certain age, that getting into the county system is a really interesting thing. I mean, Surrey, for example, you run 5 teams for over 60s, so there's an awful lot of
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of opportunity there for people to play good quality midweek cricket. And a friend of mine was captain of the Surrey Seconds over 60s, and he's a very talented cricketer, but nowhere near good enough to play in the first team, he said. So it's a very high standard. So and it's great that I think in my father's era, you probably played till you were 40, and that was it. Nowadays, people seem to play for a lot longer, which is really encouraging, I think.
Yeah, it's very funny when you look at the old pictures. If I go back to my old club in Devon and the old pictures on the wall of the players, and you look at them, and the trousers are halfway up their chest, and they all look about 60. And really, they were late 30s, early 40s. And like you said, they stopped. Most of them stopped at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's changed.
Well, we've got a little bit more time left. We've covered a lot of really interesting ground, Nick, for which thank you. But I want to go back to the Barmy Army now, really. It first came to prominence in the 94-95 tour, I think, the Ashes tour. And since then, it's become a cricketing institution. Um, what's its status now? It's essentially a travel company, but one devoted to cricket.
Yes, there's a very good film on YouTube called "Building an Army." If anybody wants to look it up, and that takes you from 1994 and the 3 guys that started it. It was a very casual thing. They just got fed up of losing to Australia, and they started singing football songs and making up words to songs that were taking the mickey out of the Australians. And it was quite rowdy to start with, and it was a little bit football loutish, if you like, to start with, but people started coming along and joining in the songs, and then they realized, well, why don't we get some t-shirts printed, because Michael Atherton on commentary had branded them Barmy Army, because the camera kept going to this group that was singing even though England were being hammered, and the whole point of it was, let's cheer England on through thick and thin, which is an admirable quality, and the one that still exists today. So it sort of built, and it stuttered, and one of the guys worked for British Airways that founded it, so he had an insight into flights, and I think they played around gradually with business models, but it's just sort of people relate to it, and I'm thinking about, well, we took 3,000 people to Australia this winter, which was a sort of record. I think it might be a record for any of the travel companies, and it now is it's a proper travel company, and we're very. The CEO is 30. He's been doing it for 7 years, and he worked as an apprentice on it, and he then saw that there was huge potential here, and he's made it into a much more of a travel company, if you like, than it was a little bit ad hoc. So now you get a holiday and you'll get a tour manager. We build in trips. We build up relationships with the tourist boards in every area. We do charity work every time. I think, did we do get $12,000 for Parkinson's disease when we played a game at the Mossman Oval in Sydney? There was all that they've always done charity work, which probably hasn't been sung about, but I've been lucky enough to be a manager on 2 trips, one in India and one in Australia this winter, and it's really it's a real family. And now there's husbands and wives going. There's husbands, wives, and children going. The trumpeters obviously become a sort of indispensable part of the business and a unique part of the business, but it is very they're very, very hot on the sort of standard. So if things get too leery, and there are people, because lots of people travel with the Barmy Army who don't come with the Barmy Army. You can come and get tickets in the same part of the ground, and they buy the merchandise and they join in, but they might not have come with us. And sometimes if it gets the CEO and the team are really conscious that it is not to be, it's Mickey taking. You've got to get the level right. It's not to get rude and personal and sweary. And when it gets like that, then they intervene. And people have been thrown out of the Barmy Army who haven't behaved appropriately. So I think it's evolved into something very, very positive and a very, very well-run travel company. I think we're looking at 2,000 people to go to South Africa next Christmas already. So and hopefully I might get a bit of a working holiday watching the cricket there, but I'll have to see.
Yes, if you can get the Cape Town one, that would be ideal,
If
wouldn't
I
it?
can wangle that, I'll be trying to wangle it, but we'll see.
Very good. Well,
But
I'm
yeah,
sure you did it.
it's a very well run travel
Yeah.
organisation now. There's discounts if you're a member of the Barmy Army. You get access to the tickets. I'll have to do the sell, or my boss won't be very happy. But it's a proper travel company. But the journey called Building an Army on YouTube is worth watching. It just gives you an insight into how it's evolved.
Yeah, no, and it's I think gone from being a sort of outside on the edge organization that people were skeptical about because they assumed that, as you rightly highlighted, it was just football fans going to chant. That's not everyone's cup of tea watching cricket, but it's a very enjoyable experience by the sounds of it. And they also, as you suggest, have their own cricket team and play against Australia or India when they're there.
Yeah, no, I was lucky enough to play for them at Dharmashala against a team. We were allowed to go onto the and play on the ground. England kindly lost in 2.5 days, and the guy that ran the cricket club in Dharmashala said, "I can get a team together. We'll play you." And what they also did up there that was amazing is they let all the fans into the pavilion, and there was all the food that had been ordered. Of course, every time a test match finishes early, there's food, drink that's ordered, and everyone that came in had free beer and free food and was able to watch our T20 game, which was a slightly lower standard than the England one, but at this wonderful ground in Dharmashala with the snow-covered Himalayas in the background, and that'll be something I'll never forget. But amazing.
No, that's a great view, I would imagine. Yeah.
If
No,
you haven't done it,
no.
it's amazing. Yeah.
Good. So we've covered lots of different things. We had a run through virtually everything we said we would do at the beginning. So if you look forward a little while now in terms of what you want to achieve in cricket, you're very heavily involved in the Root Foundation, the Root Academy, and that sounds as though it's got high potential to do far more. And that's a really nice position to be in. But apart from that, what else do you see yourself doing?
Well, I am a grandfather twice now, and I think they're going to be a handful. I have an allotment that needs to be tended, and that's been a bit neglected. I adore fishing. I've not done enough of that, but I play squash still. This paddle game that's taking the country by storm. I've played that and enjoyed it. I just it's there's I don't know if the glass isn't half full. It's probably not big enough.
Hmm.
I'd like to invent an 8-day week. There's so many things that I'm enjoying doing, and the cricket I can't seem to stop playing. It doesn't seem that the love of it doesn't diminish. I'm sure my body will tell me at some point um, that you can't do it, but at the moment I'm trogging along, and I'm sort of doing everything I did when I was 20. Really, it just a lot more slowly.
Well, that's a good position to be in, and I think I'm sure there'll be one or two more questions to come. But Matthew Stevenson, who also thank you, Matthew, for setting the meeting up tonight, has asked, where did you play most of your club cricket? Down in Devon.
Oh,
The pl-
I started up. My dad's club was Bovey Tracy, um, which is a lovely club. It had a thatched pavilion at the time, and I grew up there playing with my brother in the car park whilst Dad played, and that was wonderful. And then I played my first senior cricket with my uncle up on a place called Morton Hampstead, which is the worst wicket that I've ever played on, but the best tees that my auntie made. So I played there for a year before I got into the Bovey Tracy second team. I then I got into the Bovey Tracy first team, and I was 15, and I got 9 runs in 7 innings, including 3 golden ducks the first 3 games of the season, and I had a 7 not out in that as well, and I got dropped after the 7 not out. But that was then I wanted to play in the top division so I could play for Devon, so I moved to a club called South Devon in Newton Abbot, which is where we lived, so that was convenient. And I went to Australia for a year. I wanted to I was trying to be a professional, wanted to improve, so I played for Manly. Probably comfortably their worst overseas player ever, but I had a fantastic time there. Then I came back. I was at Loughborough University, had a year at Walsall in the Birmingham League, and then moved up to Sheffield Collegiate, where my wife was from Sheffield, and she had a proper job and I didn't. So she said, "Well, you're going to have to move up here." So I did as I was told. If anyone's ever married to a Yorkshire woman, they'll know that that's the sensible thing to do. And then I had 3 years. I've been 5 years at Sheffield Collegiate, but I did have 3 years in the Huddersfield League, which was a lovely experience as well. So that's where all my club crickets come from. Bit at Loughborough Town in the Central League when I was at university there.
Yeah, so you've covered, played a lot of different levels, but kept it going, which is greatly to your credit. So Nicholas Evanson's come back again and said, if you're ever back in South Devon, well, you're there now.
I'm there now. Yeah, I'm at Chudley
Tennis.
Knighton, Nicholas. I'm in Chudley Knighton.
Torquay Tennis Club has 3 paddle courts. There you are. So a bit of
There we
local
go.
knowledge. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've done an hour, Nick, now. Thank you very much for that. That's a wonderful tale. And I think what it's given us is a real insight into the fact that over age cricket, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s is thriving, that now there's so much support and endeavour in terms of trying to encourage people to play cricket through the Root Foundation or the Cricket Society Trust or the MCC Foundation or indeed Chance to Shine. You know, there's a lot of effort that's gone into that, and I'm sure we'll continue to see the benefit of that. It's great to hear that the Barmy Army is doing well. I know, was it 30 or 40,000 people went from the UK to watch the Ashes? The fact that they've got 10% of that market shows what an impressive organisation it is. And we wish you well as well with your work with the Cricket Society Trust, which I think someone with your connections will only benefit that. And also just that insight into minor counties cricket. It's an oft-forgotten part of the pyramid. So thank you for all that. I'm going to throw it open now and just see who else might have some questions.
Talk to everybody to death. That's the.
There's nothing on the chat. Does anyone would like to just unmute and ask some questions? Feel free.
I'd like to unmute myself, if you don't mind. Nick, I played club cricket down in Bournemouth and started in the sort of late 60s, early mid 70s, what have you. And I then went to Huddersfield Polytechnic in 76. And that was a year-long accountancy course. So I was there for the whole full summer and I got sucked into playing for the Polytechnic in the Huddersfield League. And I'd never played competitive cricket before then. And I was just amazed how it really was very competitive, but incredibly friendly. That was the greatest thing. So I'm just thrilled to hear you talking about Huddersfield League cricket. Sorry, that was very boring. I apologise.
No, and it was a wonderful place. I played in it before sat navs, and it's a Huddersfield sort of rolling hills, and there's lots of little villages joined together and all these amazing little grounds. And it's quite an extraordinary place because when I played at home, I opened the batting because I could find the home ground. I'd been taken there. But every time I went to an away ground, I was bloody well late because I was roaming around trying to look at a map, follow instructions, getting speeding fines. It was hopeless. I could not find any of these wonderful grounds in Huddersfield.
But my follow-up question is, my understanding is the Bradford League is now almost as big as or successful as the Yorkshire League. And is the Huddersfield League still going on? That's the question.
Yes, right. The answer is that Yorkshire had reorganised their league, so
Yeah.
they've got a sort of a north, west, east, and sort of south Premier League. But they've also now given the Huddersfield League Premier League status.
Oh,
So your
right.
Huddersfield League is still there. I don't think it should be a Premier League. I don't think there's any need for it. I can't see the point. And it's messed up the playoff thing at the end of the year because there's now 5 teams. So
Okay.
I don't know what the hell was the point of that. But the Bradford and Yorkshire leagues were always the big leagues. But a lot of the other leagues have merged into those leagues. So the South Yorkshire Premier League is one, and the West Yorkshire one, and there's they a bit of South Middlesbrough way playing it as well in the north. So it's a big concern.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. Very kind.
Nice to see someone from Huddersfield.
Good. Any other questions? Good. Well, I think that silence probably says we've covered every base very successfully, Nick. So thank you very much indeed for sparing your time. I know you're down looking after your mum, and we're getting one or two things on the chat saying thank you very much. It's been really interesting, which is great. It obviously has been recorded, so if any of you want to re-listen to it, obviously feel free, but it'll be available for all 1,550 plus members of the Cricket Society. So hopefully you'll get some good feedback from that, Nick. And you very generously recently joined the society as well, so thank you for doing that.
No, not at all. Thank you for inviting me on, and I shall now go and enjoy a pint of Devon Ale in the Bell in Bovey Tracy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's for old time's sake, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy your evening, and we'll see you next week at the Cricket Society Trust. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you, everyone, for attending too.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.